What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Lineup HQ show for the NBA playoffs. Tonight, we have, what is this, Game 5? Yeah, Game 5 of the Dallas Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. Yesterday, myself, Erik Beimfohr, my co-host, John Breslin, a.k.a. Squirrelpatrol, broke down a kind of crazy, weird, I don't know, that series is bizarre. The Celtics and Heat is like there's different players hurt every single night, and you know, one team has one big quarter every game and it turns it into a blowout. It's total chaos. We might see a little more chaos tonight, but I think these two teams are straightforward. May not be the total right answer, but certainly more straightforward than the two guys last night. So before we dive in, John, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Anything pop out from last night or maybe this morning while you're thinking about things that we can think about for tonight?
Yeah, I think straightforward is actually the perfect word. It is like this series seems a lot more straightforward. Like we kind of know almost exactly what Dallas's rotation is going to be. Golden State, there's a little bit of a question because like Otto Porter has been in and out, and he's questionable tonight, and that does make a difference because I think a lot of times the single game format, it comes down to which of the cheapest guys is really outperforming, and that can depend on those minutes, like those minutes off the bench. Because the starters tend to see way more solid minutes than they do in the regular season. And so, it's the bench guys that are a lot more variable. And the pricing in this single game, especially on DraftKings, where it goes down all the way to 1,000 is much more dependent on the price to dollar, or the point to dollar than you would see in the regular season.
Right. The $1,000 guy in the regular season is going to project better for a lot of reasons during the regular season because they're going to play more. In this, like we talked about Dwayne Dedmon yesterday, we talked about Duncan Robinson, we talked about Caleb Martin and those kinds of guys. I mean, Duncan Robinson I'm looking at it right now, played 27 minutes, had 11 points, 4 rebounds, a steal. He was awesome. Caleb Martin actually was pretty good too. It was the mid tier of like the Victor Oladipos and such that didn't get anywhere. So, we'll get to those guys in this game because I do think that is going to end up being kind of the crux of what we get into. But the real headline of this is how you're handling Luka Doncic. And that probably sounds like stupid to somebody watching, like, well, of course I'm playing him. But like, how are you attacking playing him? Like, say if you're making 150 teams or just making multiple, are you playing 100% Luka? And then what are you doing with the captain and or MVP spot with Luka when he's just, I mean, you see here, he's projected for 12 more points than anybody on the entire slate.
Yeah, like we talked about yesterday, I think, the distinct thing about this series is that Luka's going to be so far out above everybody else in terms of like raw point projection. I mean, I think, we've got him like 12 points ahead of anybody else. It's really difficult to put anybody else in the MVP spot, especially on FanDuel. And then even on DraftKings with the salary multiplier. I mean, he's just so much higher projected than anybody else. That the series, this game is in Golden State. They're going for the gentleman's sweep, as Chop put it. The 5 game, give them one to be polite, sweep. And so maybe Luka underperforms, but I don't know. With my own personal lineups, I think you maybe got to put Luka in at the captain at the MVP spot and then look to get different elsewhere.
I mean, he's like looking at these game logs here, right? Like he had the one bad game in this series, which I guess that would be the outcome where you don't want him in captain. You still probably need his raw points, which is crazy to think about. But, at that, 34.75 points we saw in game 1, which was an absolute destruction of the Mavs by the Warriors. I think even if you see that again tonight, it's not going to be like he's still probably going to score more than that because he's going to play like the whole game, right? This was only 35 minutes. It kind of blew out at the end. He missed X amount of minutes. That has actually happened multiple times, but this is it, right? He might come out like with a minute left or something like that if it's a blowout, but he's going to play so many minutes. It's just so hard for me to see getting away from him. And to your point, I'm going to play him in the cap, certainly an MVP on FanDuel. I think I just really don't know how you don't play him there. Maybe I'm not being, contrarian enough or being thoughtful enough, but I would rather find ways for us, like unique permutations of this game. Maybe it is the punt guy. Like yesterday, I think it was more like, well, what if Tatum struggles? We talked about this. What if Jaylen Brown was the guy? Well, guess what? Jaylen Brown was the guy, right? And Jimmy Butler didn't do anything. And so you figured out a way, okay, give me Duncan Robinson and then give me Jaylen Brown captain, and boom, I'm unique. And I have a path to first place. I would rather figure out something more on the mid to lower end in this one, as opposed to being like, okay, who can outscore Luka? It's like, well, it's only Steph. And then even Steph is not going to be under-owned, right? You would have to get crazy with like Luka gets in insane foul trouble and it's Jalen Brunson that goes for 55 or something. And like, to me, there are just better paths to get to first place. So outside of Luka though, who's like the first guy you were thinking of, jumped out to you, best play, best leverage play, whatever, just kind of the first next man up, if you will.
Sure. So I basically think there's three options. I think you can go Luka. I mean, it's going to be far and away the higher owned option, myself included. I think you can go Steph. I think you can say Steph goes berserk. I think you can go say Jalen Brunson. I think maybe there's a thought that Brunson really steps up, and then he's taking some of the points away from Luka. Maybe Luka's getting a lot more assists or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe outside of that, Clay. Maybe, I don't know. But I think it's got to, you've got to condense your captain MVP ownership around those three guys. It's Luka first. He's far and away the highest. Then Steph, I could see outscoring him. Then maybe Jalen Brunson, and that comes, at the expense of Luka, you're getting some leverage there.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I made Clay.
Yeah, it's and the hard part for me with Clay is we have if you've been watching basketball a long time, or you've been playing DFS basketball for a long time, you have these memories of the Clay like million 3-point third quarter, right? He hits 11 threes in just one quarter, and like we have the flashbacks to that. I'm not saying he can't have a ceiling game. He had a 50-point fantasy game to close out Memphis in the last round, but he's not the same player that he was before all of these injuries. And so it is very tough for me to see it. The one, like, if I really wanted to be like, okay, I'm really going to try for something crazy off the board, my one entry into the $15 or whatever the kind of the MME tournament is, Jordan Poole would be my guy that I would throw out there, because he hasn't done it in a little while, and he actually hasn't been playing quite as much in this series because Kevon Looney is apparently the new version of frickin' Patrick Ewing down low, just dominating games. But Jordan Poole has been the guy that we've seen throughout this year to just go nuts, and he can go nuts in fantasy a little bit more easily than Clay, because they both have like the same scoring upside. But Poole will get steals, blocks, he rebounds a little bit more. Clay just kind of runs around and shoots threes nowadays. And so, like, I'm not recommending this. As you can see, he hasn't, we haven't surpassed 35 fantasy points in the playoffs, but I think it's in there. I guess I shouldn't say that. He had the 59-pointer against Memphis. So I think that game is in there. If I wanted to sprinkle one of these kind of crazy guys in, I think he would be it.
Yeah, and I think there's an important distinction between FanDuel and DraftKings, where FanDuel you do not have the salary multiplier. DraftKings, you do have the salary multiplier. Okay, Jordan Poole is about half the salary of Luka, and I could see him, outperforming his salary to the point where, like, Jordan Poole is in the captain spots and Luka is in the utility spot. Like FanDuel, it's really just raw points almost. With some rare exceptions, it's raw points, and so can I see Jordan Poole outscoring Luka? Like in 150 set lineup set, I could see him like one or two. Like maybe there's a 1 in 150, 1 in 75 chance Jordan Poole outscores Luka at raw points. That's probably about as far as as far as I'm going. And that includes Clay and like Steph. Maybe it's a little bit higher. Man, like on FanDuel, it's gonna be tough to get away from Luka in the MVP spot.
Yeah, I don't even know what percentage I would, like, how many times in 150 I would say with Steph. And like, I mean, he's clearly the second option, but it's still not even that many that you would say, like, how many times out of 150, 10, 15, 10% of the time, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, how many times this series has Luka not been the highest scoring player? I think it's 1 out of 4 games and 1 out of 4 games. So maybe you're taking 25% of your lineups and you're distributing 20% Steph in the MVP.
Yeah.
And then
couple Clay, couple Poole, couple Brunson for leverage. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
But so to follow up on that, before we kind of polish off the slate with some of the cheaper guys and maybe some of these more contrarian guys, your point about the salary multiplier is very like perfect for DraftKings. Are you willing to devote a little bit more to the scenario that Luka scores 55 or 60 and Poole, Brunson, whoever get 45, and that just the fact that savings got you one or two other guys you couldn't have gotten before? Are you more willing tonight to look at that build? Or are you still just like, well, let's just make it work with one of these cheap guys?
I'm definitely going to have less like Luka at captain on DraftKings than I do Luka at MVP on FanDuel.
Yeah.
So yes, so like the salary multiplier makes a big difference. Yeah, I still think Luka will be my highest owned captain on DraftKings. Like especially if I'm entering 150 lineups, I'll probably be like Luka's the highest owned captain. But it's less of like a 70 something percent and maybe more of like a 20 something percent ownership.
Okay. A little bit more spread out then amongst kind of all these names that we've been talking about. So where do you go next? Where do you go next amongst? We talked about kind of these top end options between the Draymonds and the Wiggins and the Dorian Finney-Smith, Bullock, Dinwiddie, Kevon Looney. Is Kevon Looney just Moses Malone again tonight, or what's going on? Where are we going after the Lukas of the world?
Yeah, it's tough. I'm probably you got to pick a Golden State guy. And I think what I'm probably going to do is, you play a lot of Luka, you play a lot of Steph, and then you're looking at some cheap guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try to get different with your like combination of cheaper guys.
My expectation is that he's still only listed questionable, Otto Porter, I believe. My expectation is that he will miss again. Is there anyone you think that directly benefits, in particular, that you really want to play in your lineups, right? The Moody's, Kumingas, Damian Lees, those guys of the world.
Yeah, so it was tough because I was looking at it last game and I was thinking, was it Juan Toscano Anderson? I think came in for him, and I think people were expecting Toscano Anderson to get more of the run, and he didn't. It was really Kuminga that stepped in after having limited minutes the previous games. There's a part of me that wants to be ahead of the field, right? So I'm wondering if like Bjelica, if Porter misses, maybe it's Bjelica that comes in, but I don't know. Like Kuminga looked really good too, so like maybe they stick with him. But it's a toss up. I like the idea of going overweight Otto Porter if he's in. But yeah, if he's out, then I might try to go, some because they raised the price on Kuminga a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see, he's cheaper. Probably going to divide it somewhat between like Kuminga and Bjelica, but I think price might be really important tonight because Luka, could really go off, and so I like the idea of having him in the captain spot. And really going down on salary might be really important on DraftKings, and going with like the Bjelica because that $1,200 between him and Kuminga might make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I was even looking like I think the $200 difference between like Josh Green and Frank Ntilikina might make a difference because Josh Green's been seeing a few minutes, and like Ntilikina is such a poor like point per minute player that like if Josh Green gets in and like maybe this game blows out in any direction, like maybe Dallas actually has a commanding lead. Nobody's expecting that, but maybe Golden State comes out a little bit flat, and then you're getting some blowout minutes from like Josh Green and some of those guys, and maybe the $1,000 versus $1,200 or $1,600 makes a big difference.
That's a great point. I really like that. I clicked on, and the other name that I was going to bring up was Moses Moody. So Kuminga obviously outproduced him, but so much so to the point that, like you said, he got he's $800 more. Yeah. $800 more expensive than Moody. They played very, very similar minutes. Kuminga, had higher usage and produced more, obviously, but not like so much so that I don't want to, play my shares of Mooney. I'm an NFL brain already. Darnell Mooney for the Golden State Warriors. Moses Moody, and he actually checked in the second half before Kuminga did. So, they both have the same blowout type risk. And so my expectation is Kuminga is going to be higher owned amongst those punt guys. And so Moody would just be like this natural pivot who could very easy. I mean, you tell me which one of those guys is going to outscore. So same thing as put the Bielitsas in there, put the Moody's in there. Otto, if he plays, then I really like that angle as well. To polish up anybody, Maxey finally bounced back with a Kleba bounce back with a good game. They might need Dinwiddie a little bit more. Is Reggie Bullock ever going to make a 3-pointer again? And any last kind of finishing touches?
Don't overlook Davis Bertans, because he's somebody that they put in there if they need offense, and if they're down, it doesn't matter tonight, if you lose by 40 or you lose by 10 or whatever. If Bertans goes in, if they're down, 20 points, Bertans could see some extended run and just be shooting up threes, and he'll be a liability on defense, but it doesn't matter because it's not like you're trying to save face for game 6 if you lose. So he's somebody if you're going to go cheaper, I'd like to target Bertans over Ntilikina, because Ntilikina probably needs some steals and stuff to get there. But Bertans, he could be shooting 5-6 threes and make a few of them, and then at 2,600, that's the difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, he'll shoot. Look at this. He's shooting 4 3-pointers in less than 10 minutes. You can't get much. You don't get much better than that from a punt in the playoffs. A guy that comes in and he's going to shoot every minute or every other minute. That's pretty nice from a punt play guy. So last thing we do, we kind of do every time. What's the one thing you got it? Maybe not Luka. Shocker. You probably need Luka tonight. Hot take. Outside of Luka, what's the one thing you think we're going to need when we see the winning lineup? What's the player or the scenario that's in that one?
So I think it's a little bit similar to last night, but I think FanDuel, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and you're going with Luka and the MVP, and you're not going to see that configuration as often as it wins on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think you probably need to use the full salary, but I think you're using cheaper guys that other people are overlooking.
I love that. Along that same vein, not necessarily a cheaper guy, but the guy who kind of fits that a little bit cheaper than all these other mid-tier options. I don't think anyone's going to play him. It's Spencer Dinwiddie for me, a much more expensive version of your take on Bertans. They're going to need to score. He comes in off the bench. He actually played. He came back in for kind of a third rotation in the last game and played quite a few minutes, was on track to play, 32, 35 minutes if that game would have stayed close. And I think he's actually been seeing as much or more usage than the Jalen Brunson scenario, because Brunson plays all his minutes next to Luka. Dinwiddie will come in and play time without Luka and kind of run the show a little bit more. And so I think, again, if they fall behind, this is a must-win game, whatever, they need to defer. No offense, Frank Ntilikina, Spencer Dinwiddie probably needs to play over you if we're down by 15 in the second half or something. And he's just one of those guys, I think, that can go get 40 or something like that in a mid-tier that's that's not, nobody is jumping to play Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench in the playoffs. So I think that wraps us up. Hopefully that got the juices flowing for everybody. I think we kind of broke it down. And as John said, FanDuel and DraftKings are very different games. And it's a very different slate than, say, last night with the Luka decision on your hands. But we'll see how the playoffs keep on rolling with all these shows. If they keep running out massive contests, we'll probably keep doing these shows. But for myself and for John and for producer Devin, we will see you guys.